Let's go for record time out of here tonight. Let's go. Come on.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I would expect it to be somewhat quick.
Yeah.
That one is a little bit off from my phone, nevertheless. I'll go ahead.
I got one.
I call this meeting to order. Previously, we had talked and discussed about having or not having an invocation. I had looked at combining some wording from the state constitution and Declaration of Independence, so we'll see how people like this and shall gather feedback from it, but I will give the invocation. We're gathered here under the laws of nature and nature's God, earnestly desiring to secure the blessings of freedom undiminished to ourselves and our posterity with the guidance of providence and the supreme judge of the world. Amen.
Amen.
Next, if you will join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Lord was not feeling well, so he's not here. Jim is representing the clerk's office and taking minutes for us. If you would take a roll call for us, King.
Carrie.
Here.
Nola. Here. Kelly. Here. Jeff.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Renee. Here. And Lori is in.
And we also do have, which we'll get to a little bit later on the administrative assistant changes, but with Kim leaving, we do have Lexi in the audience. She may leave before the meeting's completely out to get home in time. And we also have Andrea, our other administrative assistant, in attendance here as well. So there's almost Steve with basically the entire audience. Administrative staff, so pretty good. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. If I have a motion.
Make that motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Terry, do I have a second? Support by Lee. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the past meeting minutes. January 10th.
I move to approve January 10th, 2022 regular meeting minutes as presented and place them on file.
I second that.
All right, and I have a note on this, so I have a discussion. And under the Diversion Council Memorandum of Understanding, it has me as a yes vote, and I voted no on that.
What page is that, Jeff? I'm sorry.
That is the third page of the minutes themselves. It's right under Planning Commission member, Diversion Council.
Yep.
And so, and then inside of that, since I was looking at it, it says there was no information from the sheriff or prosecutor, and technically both of them said that they liked it, they thought it was a good idea, there just wasn't more information than that forthcoming. So it's a minor adjustment, but there was very little information coming from the sheriff and prosecutor, but they both thought it was a good idea. Does that make sense?
Okay.
For sentence number 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't want to misrepresent what they say. And that's how that will go. So with those two adjustments, do you support that as the motion, Nola?
Yes, I do.
And who seconded?
Yes, ma'am.
Renee? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect. All right, because we had adjustments, I will roll call vote that, if you would, Kim.
Yes. Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Nope, sorry. I'm out of order.
That's okay.
Kelly?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Lori is Lee?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about that. I gotta go by the sheet.
Yeah. Next, we have the Treasury Reports. If anyone has any questions, comments?
I got a question. On the Verizon phone.
It looks like you're on the bills.
Oh, this is the bills. Yeah, come on, this is right now. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Thank you. I don't know.
All right. If there's no questions on the Treasury Report, we will place it on file. No motion. Next, we'll move on to the bills. And Does Wayne have something on Noah?
Yeah, I was just questioning on cell phone usage. How many cell phones is the township paying for? And are we on any type of a plan for those phones?
We have two. So we have the fire chief has one, and then there's one for maintenance. I'm not sure on the details of the plans. I mean, something like a family
Like a
plan for
family
multiple
plan.
or something?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Can
I
I
just didn't
speak
know.
on that?
Yes, if you
Before the
could, Karen.
clerk? We have a government discount plan,
Uh-huh,
and this month it was a little bit higher because the phones had to be upgraded, because they're going into that T-Mobile G5, whatever it was.
Okay.
Both phones were at least 4 years old, and the chiefs had to be upgraded,
okay.
so we upgraded maintenance at the same time. And we are on a governmental plan, we get it for dirt cheap compared.
It's like mine's cheaper than that, and I'm.
This is, yeah, this is the normal, we pay $48.97.
Okay, that's good, there you go, that's good, thank you. You're welcome.
I also have a question, and I did discuss this with Kim, and it was just a mistake. The Department 253 Treasurers training for BOR under you.
Yeah.
It's under treasurer.
Oh, it's under treasurer rather than under me.
Right.
All right,
And that will be moved to
Yep.
171.
okay, yeah. So just let people know there was a $20 bill for a board review training that I went to this morning, which was good, because I do have a few things to double check and make sure we're doing correctly, which we already did one this morning, and the correct resolution was passed in 2019, so.
Okay, I did have one more.
Go ahead.
I think we're crazy more. The replacement light at the transfer station, a security light for the cost of $375 to
Yes.
replace a security light. Why is that so expensive?
Because that's what the electrical company ended up charging. We looked at it for,
Why didn't our maintenance crew handle changing a security light?
it's on an elevated light pole. At first,
Okay.
part of the confusion was, I wasn't sure if it was through consumers or not. It took a while to figure out.
Right.
Eventually, that it's a private pole that was there,
Okay.
and it's not part of consumers.
Okay.
And it hadn't been operating for a while. I wasn't fully sure if there was some sort of electrical problem with it. And the electrical company went out there and did it, and there ended up not being an electrical problem with it, and they replaced it with an upgraded bulb.
Okay, okay. There's just a lot of, oh,
It is.
yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else on this? All right, do we have a motion on the bills?
Make a motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
Support?
Is that with the changes?
Yes.
Motion and support, any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Lori is absent, Carrie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Kelly.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the fire department report. Alan is out on the call, and so he's not here, so I can read through the numbers that he provided. They responded to 76 requests for service with an average response time of 9 minutes and 30 seconds. This included several mutual and auto aid requests to neighboring departments. Per the NFPA 1720 standard, we must arrive on scene within 10 minutes, 90% of the time, which I'm pleased to say we surpassed that benchmark. Unfortunately, we lost the heaters that heat the apparatus bay. Speaking with the executive board, it was decided to make slight budget adjustments to cover the cost of the furnaces, which were to be replaced in the fiscal year 2022-2023. The new heavy rescue is in production and is still on track to be delivered May 2022. We have begun to prepare for the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Next, we have the planning commission report, if you would, Lee.
Let's see, we met January 25th. First order of business was a public hearing for the Icebox brand application for a sell beer and wine, but they needed to be able to sell for their food truck. They need a base for a brick and mortar. To sell on their food truck for a private event, you need to have a brick and mortar business. So they're applying for that, and then they're going to go on for the food truck stuff. Next was a draft amendment for ordinance 2022-01, which it covered lot coverage, transportation terminals, and site plan reviews. It's just some amendments to that. We reviewed and And motion for public hearing. The last was another draft amendment ordinance, 2022-02 for mobile food vendors. Currently, there's no ordinance about food trucks, and yeah, we are drafting this ordinance to allow food trucks and provide standards for their operation. Discussed, reviewed, draft, and motion forward to public hearing.
Perfect, thank you, Lee. Next, we have our first public comment section. And on this, if there's anything on the agenda that someone wants to comment on, and this includes the Michelin roads, because we did the hearing for assessment number 2 in the last meeting, so there won't be a separate hearing on the Michelin roads. But you can comment in that first public comment section if anyone has a comment to make. So if you have any comment to make on any agenda items, if you would please come up to the lectern, make the comment now. Yeah, you can come up.
So Jeff has already introduced me. I'm Andrea McGann. I'm the Deputy Treasurer, Administrative Assistant. I read through the packet quite heavily over the weekend. There are a few things that I wanted to address the board and just ask for my knowledge and for everyone else's knowledge. One thing, you know, you were going over budgeting and stuff like that. Policy Resolution 2022-09, approval required for expenditures exempt as provided in paragraph 4D. Payments to authorized township contractors for inspections, building maintenance, unanticipated vehicle repair, cemetery sexton. Can you please explain the actions as to why none of those would go in front of the board for prior approval?
Well, so basically the process that we're working out on this, which I think we all kind of assumed we had worked out with the purchasing policy, but it ends up that you need a separate expenditure policy, is not waiting for everything to come before the board before it is paid. And what it seems like a lot of municipalities have run into and switched over to a process like this, which Dalton did. At some point, Dalton switched over to a process of doing this, but without having an expenditure policy in place, like should be required by law. I talked to the lawyer about it. And so it seems like some of the municipalities, they end up missing some of the bills and the timely payments, stuff like that. And so they just make it so that certain things can go through. And then there's essentially a review process by the board. And so those amounts and numbers, everything comes to the board to see it after the fact on those things.
So like a specific line item, so I understand every department has their own budget. Fire, you know, everybody's got their own budget. But for a line item, for an example, the new chassis for the fire truck, is that a line item?
I believe we included that in the line item in the last budget. Correct.
And before purchasing the chassis, it was recognized by the board that there was money there to purchase that chassis.
Correct. Yeah. And that's where the confusion was on the purchasing policy. That the updated purchasing policy included those things, but we need an expenditure policy in place to actually do that. You can't have the one form without the other.
Under scheduled debit service payments and procedures, A, discretionary retirement payments made on behalf of township officers, employees may be reported as a single item without identifying the officer or employee making contribution. Can you explain why?
Without just why they're not identified?
Yes.
I assume that's a confidentiality thing of not wanting to express how much are you putting into retirement, basically.
But wouldn't it be, how do I word this? Transparent to see what Dalton Township puts into, not extra, like just across the board?
Well, for employees, it's 12%.
Okay.
And then, but above that, how much you want to put in, you can put in. I mean, I have no problem making everyone's stuff public, right? But I have a tendency towards too much transparency, not quite enough confidentiality, and so I try to be careful with that.
But everyone is set equally? Like-
for the 12%, but above that, you get to choose.
Oh, let me see here. There was amendment, on H. The clerk shall perform the function of the supervisor in the policy in case of the absence of inability of the supervisor. Can you explain the extent of this statement? Is the inability if you're gone away at a meeting, if you're in a car accident, you're gone for like an extended period of time, or you're just out lunch?
I would say it's potential in any of those situations, but it would really only apply in the more extensive situations. If I'm at a particular meeting or out to lunch, it wouldn't make as much sense. But it makes sense to have someone in the backup position in case I am out, if I get in a car accident, something like that.
And then also says supervisor statement, I hereby delegate the township clerk to authorize to act in conjunction with the supervisor as the expenditures agent with the duties set forth in this policy until such time as the delegation is rescinded in writing and provided as amended to the policy to the clerk as set forth in paragraph 12. So does this mean the treasurer would not be a part of those conversations? Because it's fully stating both the supervisor and the clerk.
I think that's a copy over from the purchasing policy, which, the way we put it together, copied the powers from the supervisor to the clerk.
So you're saying the supervisor doesn't have any control over it?
No, it was just a doubling up. So, and I believe technically we copied it off from the Muskegon Charter in the purchasing policy, where they had a backup as the clerk for approving things.
But isn't it Dalton Township's policy that the executive board would be all three?
The executive board is already correct.
So why wouldn't the expenditures fall under that same category? As an executive?
It could be set up that way. I mean, it could be set up a lot of ways.
I'm just looking at it from like a check and balance.
Yeah.
Like, the clerk's office pays the bills, the treasurer's office brings in the money, the revenue from taxes or whatever,
Right.
and there seems to be no balance. If you take the treasurer's position out of that, and it's just the clerk and yourself, where's the balance? Like, should there be a third or the whole board?
Sure.
That's just my concern.
Correct.
How about somebody else? And then in the packet also, why are there so amendments to the expenditures?
Amendments to the expenditures. What do you mean?
Ooh, I should have wrote more notes. There were just a lot of amendments, and it's like, I didn't understand exactly why everything was being amended. Throughout the process, like, it just seems like there was a lot more things being amended than new things being brought forward. We were,
Overspending. Why is there so much overspending and then the amendments being made to?
You mean budget, the quarterly budget adjustments? Oh, bad guessing. I would say it's bad guessing in budgeting.
where is the money going from the property through the landfill?
Right now it goes into the general fund, other than the one for Wayside,
And where did that go?
into the sewer fund.
In your brief on February 14, 2022, you state the fire department has their operating millage expiring in 2024. There was a vote on what to decide whether or not the fire department is going to continue to exist. First off, why would you make a statement that would sound like a threat?
Sound like a threat to the fire department?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought I've threatened you, Alan?
No, not personal threat. Your comment said,
Not threatening
it says,
the
so
fire department.
there's a vote on to decide whether or not the fire department is going to continue to exist.
Correct.
That to me is more of like a threat tactic.
Threat tactic. I
Like,
don't,
if you don't do this, we're not gonna have a fire department.
well, that's true.
See, it's a township vote, not,
Right.
it's not us.
Yeah.
It's everybody in the township.
It's a millage vote.
Millage.
So I see
Right.
what she's saying there,
Yeah.
right here. It says the fire department has their operating millage expiring in 2024, so there's a vote on that to decide whether or not the fire department is going to continue to exist. So
Right.
it will not continue to exist is how I look at it also. It will not continue to exist if the people of our township do not vote on this. So,
Correct. I mean,
Our village expires.
that's just correct.
so,
That's it.
Right.
So it's just a matter of fact,
Correct.
put it out there. to
Yeah.
work.
I mean, I could sugarcoat it, but I did not. Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
How millages work for those that don't understand, especially ours. We had a 20-year millage, we haven't raised it in 20 years. It expires in 2024. If the citizens were to say, we don't want to renew the millage, then any tax money we get in, $287,000 or whatever, is gone, which means we cannot function. We can't function without that, because the second millage we have is an equipment millage. That is only strictly for equipment, i.e. fire trucks or the building. So I have a building, I have fire trucks, I just can't anybody to have in it, because the operating millage is what pays for the employees. What we need to look for here in the future, because of our call volume and our staffing, obviously, I apologize for my tardiness, I go on a call. It's hard to challenge to do that. We need to decipher if we need to run a millage request and renewal and a millage increase, which I hate doing. But it's pretty hard for us to continue to exist this way. We have to decide if we want to do them together or separate. If we do them together and we lose both, then we have nothing. We can run a regular millage and say we're okay, run the operating millage and renew it, and the citizens say, sure, we stay status quo, but we're not any better. That's why I didn't read the brief, I apologize, I didn't see the brief yet. But yes, we would fail to exist if that millage did not get passed by the citizens.
And the reality is, if I could interject here, is with the cost of fuel right now, it's like, you want our fire trucks to run out of fuel going on a call? There has to be an increase. Nobody likes to pay these things, but gee, if your house is on fire, or if the woods are on fire coming towards your house.
Yeah, that's good. And we got a lot to discuss. I appreciate all these questions. They're super good. You can bring them to me anytime in the office as well. We can discuss all this. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a meeting. Normally, the first public comment, it would just be a 3-minute period where someone would make a comment to the board. And then I let the second public comment, and we can get as loud as we want. But normally, it'd be limited in some aspect. I didn't know quite how extensive the question list was going to be.
And I apologize, it's my first meeting, so.
Yeah, oh, I appreciate it. And these are great points, great questions.
And I'll save the rest for later.
Yeah, we have a second public comment section, and then we have, all the office hours. Perfect. Do we have anyone else for public
Sorry
comments
for taking up everybody's time.
on any of the agenda items?
Can I make a public comment even though I'm up here?
Sure.
Okay. Carrie and I went and participated in training last Wednesday, and it was really neat to see how everything, it's our first time really going through the whole, the whole building over there, and the different purchases and things that they've done, and that, it was just really, it was neat. So I just would really highly encourage anyone else to go and do that. We brought in dinner for everybody, and of course, we were well received because food and training goes well together. But it was really neat just to sit back and watch the camaraderie, and they were like family and picking on each other, but still getting through the training. And we just really Just want to thank you, Chief Stiles, for having us and hosting us.
We appreciate you coming over. It means a lot for the guys and gals to see, even citizens. It's important to us that they get to see it's their stuff. It's not ours. We're just the key holders of it. Everything is the community's, not ours. And so to have that means a lot to us.
That's
I
fine.
appreciate it.
Perfect. All right.
May I real quick jump back in? Could you please make an amendment in the minutes? For some reason, I don't know why my graph shows November. It's not, it's correct. It's the correct data. It's just whatever the header says November on it in my agenda, my report for some reason.
I did not even notice that.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know why.
your report?
Yeah, my report in the graph section.
Okay, it's not a voted item.
I know,
so I'll go back
just
and
put a
make
note,
that
some
change.
minutes,
Yep,
if somebody sees
yep.
it, says, why does it say November? I just wanted to be documented that
I
it was
will.
actually January. Thank you, that's all I have.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to our decision items. The first one is Resolution 2022-02, salary for the supervisor. So Lori had asked me which direction to draw these up for salary levels, and I said to keep them the same. So that is how they're drawn up here, unless anyone disagrees. I know that last year things got wound with the annual meeting, and we had discussed that before, and what the electors can and can't do, how much power there is, and I wasn't expecting for there to be a push for increases. And so this year I think it'll go smoother. So this one is for the supervisor. If anyone wants to make a motion on that.
I make a motion to approve the fiscal salary for the supervisor Dalton Township, stated resolution 2022-02.
I'll support.
Motion by Terry, supported by Noah. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Lori Petson, Carrie,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Kelly. Yes. Jeff.
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have the same thing for the clerk.
Same, move to approve the 2022-2023 fiscal year salary for the clerk of Dalton Township as stated in resolution 2022-03.
I'll second that.
Motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
and Lee,
Yes.
and Lori is absent.
Motion passes. Next, we have the same thing for the treasurer.
I move to approve the 2022-2023 fiscal year salary for the treasurer of Dalton Township as stated in resolution 2022-04.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Lee. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
We will start with Carrie,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
and Lori is absent.
Motion passes. Next, we have the same thing for the trustees.
Same, I move to approve the 2022-2023 fiscal year salary trustees Dalton Township as stated in resolution 2022-05.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Lee. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
And we're going to start with Carrie,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
and Lori is absent.
Motion passes. Next, we have Michelin Road. So this is the 2022-06 Michelin Road Special Assessment Number 2, the one we discussed at the previous meeting. There were some questions, adjustments, things like that. One of the questions was, is the horse trail included on here? And it was drawn up that it was on there before. We had to look into the state-owned land for the bike trail. They are exempt, so they're listed on here, but they're exempt because they're the state. And it was drawn up originally as 7 years, and now that has been adjusted to 10 years on here. And so basically how this would work, because a lot of times they do special assessment resolutions 2 and 3 in the same meeting. I just separated them out so that people had more time to come, public comment, write objections, whatever they wanted to do. And so that if we pass this one, there's a couple of steps we'll do, but then we'll move right on to number 3 after this. So we're still on that same time frame that we originally had set for the 4 resolutions. So postponing it hasn't actually changed that time frame. And we already had the public hearing on 2. All right, so there's a hearing on 2 and there's a hearing on 4. The hearing has concluded, and so I checked the lawyer and everything, made sure we're in good shape even though we postponed that. And he said we were, so the hearing has has successfully been held at the previous meeting, so now it's just up for the board to make a decision.
Okay, I make the motion to approve the resolution 2022-06, the second for Michelin Road Special Assessment.
Support?
Motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, we will roll call vote.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Lori is absent. Motion passes.
Motion passes. Now we'll do a couple of steps. If you have those blue papers, Tim. And so I am signing this roll. And I'm filing that with the clerk's office. And that has been passed is reported to the board now. And those three steps allow us to move on to the third resolution in the process. And this one, essentially what number 3 is doing, and the most important thing that's happening in number 3 is it's setting up that there's going to be another hearing for resolution number 4.
I make a motion to approve the resolution 2022-07, the third for the Michelin Road Special Assessment.
I'll second that.
Motion by Nola, seconded by Carrie. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Lori is absent.
Motion passes. So that will move on to resolution number 4 in the next meeting. And then if that passes, the entire process for special assessment has been gone through, that we need approved at the board. And then we're able to pull the bond, which we're working on, yeah, the same getting arranged, but we can't pull it until the 4th resolution has gone through. Resolution 2022-09 for the expenditure policy, and this is one we've talked about a bit here. And the basic idea is that we pass that purchasing policy to smooth things out a bit. And I thought this type of stuff had basically been taken care of with that when we passed it. But it ended up, when we had the fire chassis going through, it's a decent check to sign, right? And so there was some hesitancy about it. And the rest of the fire truck will be a bigger check. But there was some hesitancy about it. And so looking into it, I checked with the lawyer, and you actually need an expenditure policy to do this, where, and you end up paying like utilities and stuff ahead of time before they come to the board, those types of things. To do all of that, you should have an expenditure policy in place. The lawyer had sent an example one, and then it was adapted somewhat, and we had met at, the executive board had met at to make some adjustments. I wanted it to be in alignment with that purchasing policy we had made, and so was what we ended up with here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I think Andrea did address that in her questions, but on G, budget line item, can you define line item before we, does it mean specific items?
A specific, I would say, a specific thing that is budgeted for. Now, I mean, the line could be a description, however it's described, and then there's a certain amount after it. It's up to that amount for the budget item. Like the chassis in question, it was on there for a chassis, and I think it was budgeted for 200,000, came in at 186 for the rest of it.
Right.
$340,000 to go.
Right.
Which, I will speak in years past, when we've done this last time, if it's the capital outlay, which is what we have to do for the auditor, correct me if I'm wrong, and yes, it was capital outlay because it can depreciate, correct, with the purchase.
It has to go into capital outlay, but it also has to be, when you specify line items, it has to be specific to the item.
Correct.
Just because it's in your capital outlay does not mean that money can go in and come out any which way. There has to be line item approved after the amount.
Well, so it can't just be like expenses amount. It has to be something like fire chassis amount.
Just because it's there.
Correct.
and it's budgeted does not mean I can freely spend that money. It means it's a lot, it is not addressed as a line item. A line item means that money can go in, that money can go out. What they're looking for, I think what the question they're looking for is line item, does that mean by particular item?
Which means we have to go to the fourth digit.
You would have to have that listed in your pre-approved budget.
Right, so the
Yes.
3 zeros would then be how the GASB works.
Yeah.
The uniform taxing code.
Or
is
it
the
would
fourth
just
digit.
have to be pre-approved by the board
But this is for that.
under that budget. The money goes in as a budget item. All that money is there and it is available. But it doesn't mean it can be taken out just because it's a line item with that amount and it can be spent on anything. That item is an item that needs to be, it doesn't mean itemized. It's categorized, it's not itemized.
Right.
I hope that makes a little more sense.
I mean, that's
Nope,
what we
that's
are
okay.
talking about.
That's what we're here
That
for.
fourth digit, that fourth set of digits, 000, if we made
It's
whatever.
category.
Correct,
Yeah.
whatever, I
Yeah.
don't know what it is for that one.
Yeah,
Point one,
that
two,
puts
five.
it in the category where that is where that money would come from.
Right. We'll use capital outlay, we had 2 capital outlay items, hypothetically. We have fire truck and something else. One would be coded as fire truck, one would be coded as the other item, using the fourth set of digits in the
Yeah.
206 accounts.
Yes.
Correct. I just think we need, I think in something like that, my personal opinion, I think we need to add that fourth set of numbers, just so we know it's specific, it's not something.
Once an item is approved by the board and am I speaking out of place?
No, go ahead.
Once an item is approved, in my experience in this is, once an item is approved by the board for a large purchase and there is a millage or whatever to do with it, that should become a separate line item. We have a vehicle that is going to cost $800,000. There should be a line item created. And that should, all monies in, monies out, goes from that specific line item, not just the capital outlay. It should then therefore be created, and we have the capability is there to do that. It's not something that's been done in the past. But it should not be done, in my opinion, and legally through MCL, until that item is approved by the board.
My question would be, if it's specific, I request that money in the budget for the fire chassis, is that approved?
It has to be approved by the board.
Correct. So if we approve the budget, and I say this line is for a fire truck.
This amount is, I am asking for board approval.
Correct.
For, yes.
Correct. So at that moment, that is approved for that purchase.
No. Because you still have to follow the policy.
Correct. Well, I follow the purchasing policy, but they have approved to purchase that vehicle.
Yeah.
I want to make sure when I sign the contracts, we're not in violation when I sign the contracts, that we're approved.
All right.
Well, that opens another can of worms, but that's not, this isn't the place
Right,
to
no.
do that.
All right.
Now you know why you don't want me to come to meetings.
We've gotten bogged down, it's not a fast meeting at all, but what do we, any other questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns? No? All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the resolution number 2022-09 for Dalton Township expenditure policy.
Second that.
Motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Lee,
Yes.
and Carrie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have 2022-10 for the enforcement process. And we saw the enforcement process before, and Nola's on the zoning board of appeals, so she's seen me a little bit on that end. And Steve has obviously worked with a lot in the zoning office. And I made it so that we had automatic administrative appeals. That's what I included in the previous resolution, so they went to the zoning board of appeals. But we've seen a few issues with that. One is that people don't show up, even though we're appealing it on their behalf, and they get to make their case. And then there's also the fact that administratively, we might have been dealing with the issue for a few months up to that point. Then it goes to the zoning board of appeals. They're seeing it for the first time. Someone comes in, and even though they've been talked to and those types of things, they can make the case to the board that they haven't. And so for those reasons, we're making some adjustments here. One is that one of the letters, the last letter will be registered mail, and that it will just be explicit that they have the right to appeal. There's a number of steps in there where mediation is offered, these types of things. But they have the right to appeal, it's not just automatically appealed on their behalf.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2022-10 to amend the enforcement process.
I'll second that.
Motion by Noah, second by Carrie. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Jeff,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
and Kevin.
Yes.
And Mary's absent, sorry.
Oh, fine. Motion passes. Next, we have the Diversion Council Memorandum of Understanding. And we talked about this last time, and I was able to just get a general recommendation from the sheriff and the prosecutor, but nothing in the way of specifics at this local level. And what it appears to me is it might be a little bit clunky in that we have commissions, creating councils, creating boards, and this type of thing, and I couldn't find too much specific on here. I found more on the larger organizations, the stepping up organization, those types of things, including those in the previous board meeting. If this was postponed, because the board wanted more time to look at that information over, and so just bring it back for us to make a decision.
So I think when I'm looking it over, I didn't see, so what's the cost it's going to be to the taxpayers? If we approve this, what are taxpayers going to be paying?
From us, this is a memorandum of understanding, and so it would make it so that our fire has to do certain training and report things in certain ways. Well, other than that, it's not an agreement, as far as I can tell. It's written up in a pretty general fashion, but there's no part of the agreement that says we're contributing money to anyone in some way.
So it's just more training for the fire department to go through.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
What
please.
this is in order to keep habitual offenders out of the system, should we encounter them, this diversion council has the right to our information through we call them patient, whatever they're called then. It's basically to get them behavioral health and futuristic health. They're basically allowing them to be, that we would assist in helping with documentation to figure out what they can do to keep this person on a straight and narrow path versus a path of disarray. All this says is that we would be willing to participate if someone in our jurisdiction, we would give information, and we would also help beyond councils to help train other firefighters, law enforcement on how to deal with mental wellness, mental illness, alcohol and drug abuse, those kinds of things. Yes, it is more training for us, which isn't a big deal, but it just says that we will work in conjunction with the county as a whole to try and eliminate this problem. That's really what it says. No funds.
There's fire department getting involved. I understand you guys are first responders, that's
Right,
why.
that's why.
the initial thing. But if it's a repeat offender,
There-
why isn't it not going to law
Well,
enforcement instead?
It is. This council does that. If you look at all the signatories, it's all the way from the prosecutor down. They just need the fire service, because we're the first responders and the ambulances, to be able to give them the information so they can do the work, not us. They through a grant, have all the money to do this stuff. All we would do is if they needed data, how many calls did you go on that were suicide attempts? And then they would differentiate that to figure out there needs to be help. There's really nothing that's going to, the way I understand it and from the research I've done, it basically is to help them, we help this diversion council by giving them data. That's all we're really doing, is just giving them straight up data. That's all it really is. We don't have to go to anything, but they will offer us training if we feel we need it. I was just on a mental wellness call right now. I spent 20 minutes de-escalating the person. That's what they're going to do to us. They're going to have us offer us training. There's no money to us or the township, the way I read it. I don't know. I got brought to see because I didn't want to sign anything until the board approves it. Because it asks for it says the federal signature.
So my question is, if we approve it, does anything change? And if we disapprove it, does anything change?
They won't get data about our community. as a whole, which could lead to, if I'm correct, grant, if the county's doing grant things. If you don't report, sometimes you don't get funds. I don't know how it works at the county level. I know fire department level, if I don't report, I don't get funding.
It doesn't stop them from FOIA and information.
Right, they can still FOIA it. They could FOIA it in theory, which, just more paperwork. What is this gonna take what is this gonna take, what load is this gonna put on the fire department? No, honestly, in my opinion, from what I understand, very minimal. I run reports once a month. I run them, it takes me 10 minutes to run state reports. I can't believe a diversion report would take more than about 30 seconds. I mean, honestly, I would put in the parameters, it's hit enter, and tell me if it is or isn't. So, really, no extra work, in my opinion.
So no extra work, no extra cost, doesn't really do anything. I'm just kind of confused, I guess, about why.
So on my end, how I see this is I'm a little uncomfortable with the difficulty of gathering information that I would like from the Diversion Council. Now, it would be different if I was sitting on the county board and we were voting whether to create or uncreate the Diversion Council board. But we don't have that vote. That's not what this vote is.
Right.
And I would be uncomfortable with that until I had more information that it was functioning well, because I'm not confident in that. I think it's very good intention, and I agree, for non-violent offenders, I think it's very good to divert them into a different path, rather than just incarcerating them, throwing them with violent offenders, and creating more violent offenders, which I think is a horrible process, and some things are very messed up in our system there. But all we're voting on is whether we're gonna have this memorandum of understanding between our fire department.
That's what I'm trying to understand, what this vote is entailing, what's going on, the scope.
Right.
Because like you said, it's just a memo. So I wondered why we even had to look at this. It's not doing anything, I understand it.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell exactly how they're operating, at least from my perspective.
This is fairly new that council has made.
The council is not very new.
2017, I believe. is the
November
date.
9, 2017, it was created by the Board of Commissioners here in this
By the county commissioners, correct.
So did the sheriff's department already partake in this type of thing?
The sheriff's department and the prosecutor's
So
office.
I know of a personal situation where somebody has dealt with some illicit drugs, and the police have been called 3 times, and literally nothing was done.
Mm.
There was no help for anybody, other than, don't do it anymore, this is a felony, you have possession, nothing's ever done about it, and I'm just curious, why?
Well, that's exactly, I don't know how well it's
taxpayers
operating.
even- Yeah, I don't trust this.
It's lip service.
I don't trust it myself.
But we're not voting on its existence or creation, so our vote is very, very limited on it. Whether we want the agreement with our fire department to participate, basically in their collection of information and some training.
So the training, there's no cost to us for that training?
I am not sure. Do you know
What
that?
I've been told, what I've
Covered through the county.
correct. But again, it's very vague. If you read it, it says that the cross collaboration of training can be there for,
The memorandum is very vague.
This
give
isn't-
me 1 second, I'll find
This is a contract, though, like.
it. No, it's an MOU, a memorandum of
So
understanding.
if you
that says
just,
we would
if
be
it turns out to be something that we don't want to do, we just not do it, correct?
It just says ensuring access to all law enforcement and first responders to enhance trainings using multiple venues, including online, classroom, and scenario-based experiences. Instruction delivered by law enforcement to behavioral health professionals understanding the role of law enforcement and other first responders, developing strategies to bond an effective co-responding team through lecture and scenario-based training.
I would say correct.
As a training guy, this is just saying we're gonna come together, spitball ideas, and say, how can we make it better?
Right. Which might be the situation that some of this is in from the data that I can't gather.
Right.
And it's, if we thought it was bad, if something went bad with it, it would be pretty easy for us to get out of it.
That's
Well,
what
it says it's good, if you read the beginning, it says that it's a review of it annually. So if
Right.
a year goes, they just dumb, then we just say, we're not signing. Right. Again, I don't care what you folks decide.
I just.
I don't see it being any, again, from what I can gather, what I've asked other departments, no one has signed it yet either, because they're all trying to ask the same questions that our board is asking.
And it's vague.
Can we postpone it another month to find out
Or, I mean, if we just,
So I don't wanna pass something that is so weird, I mean vague. I don't really know what exactly this is.
There's nothing definitive whether our taxpayers will be paying for this or not, at the extra expense.
Somebody's paying
I mean,
for this.
exactly, the county's paying for it, and that's let the county take care of it.
I mean, we could postpone it.
If the township can do it, then the double dip it.
We could table it, and then if it comes up, if we get better word from another municipality that's participating, something like that, then it can be brought back up.
I'd like more information personally.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna do us harm to pass it, as far as I can tell. It's just weird, it's weird to pass without seeing
I make
it
a motion to
operating.
table this till we get more information on this.
All right, so we have a motion to table by Carrie,
Second.
second by Renee. Any discussion on that, on the motion to table? Hearing none, let's roll call vote.
Nola,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Lee,
no.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly.
Yes to tabling it?
And Jeff.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, so we have a land bid opening for 2.9 acres south of Goose Egg Lake. And this one, we actually do not have any bids for. And so it was a requested land sale, and all of our land sales, and so the person must have changed their mind for whatever reasons that they changed their mind. So our next one is a land bid opening for 0.63 acres on White Lake Drive. And we do have a single bid that came in today that is sealed here to open. And we had set a minimum of $12,500 in the previous meeting. And we have a bid for $12,600.
Motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Motion by Carrier, second by Nola to accept bid for $12,600 for the partial. Any discussion on that?
Do we know, I mean, of course, I'm sure this is gonna fly through, but how do we know who's buying it? Is there confidentiality that's supposed to be in that? Can we ask who exactly is buying it, who they're doing for what, doing what with it?
Well, the doing for what, we don't necessarily know. So, because they don't have to say what their plans are, particularly on the property. And so, I mean, we have the information of who requested it, and the guy wrote his name on here. I'm not sure if he wants it to be expressed. Yes, Tim?
From the clerk's office, if I could intercept here.
Yes.
Historically, we have tried to always keep the bidders' names out of a public bid in properties like this, only because the board can accept any price they can throw away, and it has happened.
Right.
They can decide not to go with this one, and go with this one, and if the entire board knows who's doing the bidding, we'd like to think everybody would be fair, but historically, we have always attempted to keep the names out of it and just the bid amounts.
And you put some question into it, and it's one of those things where I have a tendency to be too transparent, I think. And so I'm trying to measure that with some level of confidentiality. I know they've been in and talked to zoning about what they can and can't do with it. And so they've been looking at their options moving forward with that. But two, when we put up something for bid like this, you don't have to have a specific plan moving forward. Right. I mean, we can move in that direction and stuff. We can limit things in those ways, but we haven't been.
You just look at it, so I'm just gonna buy it.
Right.
Lee? Whoops, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're good. Is there any other discussion? No, that's good. All right, roll call vote.
Larry? Lee?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly?
Yes?
Jeff?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And Lori is it.
Motion passes. Next, we have a land sale request for 5.6 acres on Russell Road. And this one is made up of 4 parcels requested together. And we have the appraisals in here. It was appraised by a realtor between $25,200 and $28,000 for all of them together.
Can I ask how much land does Dalton Township actually own? And are we selling off all that we own by all these requests?
Well, so the total square acreage and something like that, I'm not sure. I have a map that was drawn up just recently by the county GIS to show all the pieces that we own. And we own quite a bit up near the village of Lakewood Club there. And so we discussed before, just lightly, haven't followed through on any aspect of it, of turning some into hunting land. Obviously, we can't sell it all. So, because we have the 4 parks, we have the 2 cemeteries, we have the township, we have a few things with the transfer station. We obviously wouldn't be selling those things. We also have the horse trail, which is huge, and we wouldn't be selling that. But the rest of it, I don't see a particular reason to hold it. As far as I can tell, the policy in the past has been to hold the township land, but for what purposes is less clear. And so whether or not we wanted to designate a certain section of that as hunting, which obviously is a decent endeavor to take on, we could or we could not, but outside of that, I see no reason not to have private people get it and do what they want. Yeah, put it on the public tax roll.
Especially where it's at, the long, skinny section of these 4 properties together. You want to build, you want to do like a park kind of thing, and it's kind of pointless, kind of a skinny little thing, I guess you can.
Well, and what had happened with a lot of this is that at various times in the past, we found some stuff in the 1920s, 1960s, 1987 is a great example though. So from the state and the county, there were 15,000 small pieces of land given back to the township for more local management. If the township wanted to sell them or do something with them, they thought the local decision-making would make the most sense, which I think is a good idea. And so a lot of the tiny pieces were because you could buy a Tribune down in Chicago, a subscription to the Tribune, and you would get this tiny piece of land.
Chicago is actually.
There's over 3,000.
Chicago.
Herald.
Oh, the Herald?
Chicago Herald.
I thought it was the Tribune.
Farm paper, you got 2 parcels of land if you bought
Right.
2 years of tribute.
Right, and so a lot of it ended up like that, and that's
3,000 pieces.
why a lot of it's up near the village of Lakewood.
Yeah, 2,000, yeah. But you needed 4 to build.
Yeah, now I think you need more, I think you need 8. So, yeah, so that's what the situation is on this. That's the one we just sold. Yeah, so move.
It's this here, and it's these ones here?
Correct.
There we go. Some of them.
I guess I motion to open parcel 6-1 then. You want me to read all the parcel numbers?
Please no.
I don't think we need to, the 4 parcels under consideration.
Okay, I motion to open the 4 parcels under consideration for bidding as a whole for a minimum of $26,500.
There's a motion by Lee,
I'll second that.
second by Gary. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
and Lori is absent.
Motion passes.
26-5.
And the next one we have is the land sale request for 28.97 acres on Russell Road. It's much further south on Russell Road, but not up by the village.
It's closer to River.
It is closer to River, yeah.
I didn't look at it on the map, I just saw it on this here.
And there's a single parcel that's been appraised at between $72,000 and $87,000.
Yeah, I make a motion to open parcel under consideration for bidding for a minimum of $82,000.
Motion for $82,000.
Support that.
Support by Noah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Hang on just a second here. Nola seconded that?
Correct. And a motion by Carrie, second by Noah.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
And Gloria's absent. 82,000. Okay.
Motion passes. Next, we have our discussion items. The first one is the budget discussion, and I included a few things in here. One is that the ARPA fund rules have finally been finalized. And I really didn't want to move on something until that occurred because it was put through at the federal level, obviously, for political reasons without the rules being with it. And at first, it was very restricted. And now it's become less restricted in the final rules, and quite a bit less restricted. Dalton Township's getting a little over $800,000 on this. We've discussed it a few times before lightly, but we basically said that we wanted to wait until we got the final rules. Now they're out, and so we need to have projects planned in 2024 and they have to be completed in 2026. So that's the time frame. And then it just depends on what we want to do and where we want to allocate things. Some of the obvious things that jump out is the parks have been allowed to fall into some disrepair. Some of these buildings are in rough shape in various ways. The channel projects weren't done well, and they weren't done great, so even if we're not using this money for that, we have to do something with those. And I had the Conservation District drop the estimate on that before last summer because the signs were collapsing. And it's now opened up to roads, which kind of opens up an opportunity and kind of can of worms, of course, at the same time. And so it's a decent amount of money. I think when people look at $800,000, it seems like a decent amount of money, but it's not going to go that far. And so we have to choose which opportunities we want to take and which ones we want to pass on with this money. Do people have kind of a preference on which direction they would like to see emphasized or not emphasized?
I like the channels being taken care of.
Mhm.
There was-
Channels
there was
one,
a-
and also we could allocate some of that towards that sewer. We're working on that.
We cannot allocate it towards debt still.
Oh, we cannot.
You cannot allocate it towards debt, because I did look at that.
Look at those launch.
The boat launches, we could, it could go towards boat launches. So, in the channels, it depends on to what extent we want to do projects, or how big of projects we want to do. Like on the channels, because the sides were collapsed, and they should have been braced up better. And I had the Conservation District estimate it, but obviously inflation and price changes and logistical issues, they said it's difficult to estimate. But somewhere between 20 and 30 grand to put the logs made out of coconut fibers and whatnot, brace those up. And so that's a relatively minor thing. You can obviously go as extensive as you want on basically any project. We could put in big old cement channels and stuff like that. But the one culvert was just redone by the road commission because it was put off by a year, but then it hadn't been followed up with, and they were like, we have to move on this thing, so they did. And so that part is done, and I think it should have been done differently in the past. I think there should have been a special assessment district around the lakes, and then basically the $84,000 that went into it probably should have been doubled, and it should have been braced correctly, and the bridge should have been put in. But that is not the way that went. And so it depends on how extensive we want to get, but if we want to do, I think, kind of the minimum of bracing up the sides to hold better, hopefully it comes in below $30,000, depending on how those prices are fluctuating now.
I definitely like the idea of a working session, but another thing I'd like to throw out there is sometimes it's hard, especially on a piece of paper that's black and white with a little map and a bunch of little numbers, to know exactly where and what we're talking about. I would like to see, for lack of a better teacher, field trip. A way for us to go together and go out and look after a working session, go out and actually look at those different areas that we're considering spending money in.
Oh,
Together, so that we can see them.
So that's fair, but you have to be very careful with the Open Meetings Act. If we're just doing a field trip together and there's a quorum
Go
of
to a
us,
Facebook Live.
There you go.
and there's limitations on that now because The online participation has changed, the laws around that have changed because there are temporary emergency orders too. But in smaller pieces and groups and as individuals and up to 3 people could check out the channels and that type of thing. I could connect you with some of the information for like the conservation district if you wanted to talk to them about what they were thinking on something like that. Because I worked with them over the summer and they were very helpful, very knowledgeable.
Question, is this something also, obviously, I would assume, maybe that's, if I say about that word, but what about getting the public comment in about things that I'm sure you get plenty of feedback from what the Dalton Township residents would like this money spent on. But I'd like to hear some of those ideas too. Is there something before we just go in with a work session and start making decisions? I'd like to hear the constituents and what their needs.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. Well, in the work session that I'm talking about here too is because we have the budget for this year, our normal budget, not just the ARPA funds. The ARPA funds are this extra thing that are different, the special one-off thing. But we also have to figure out the budget for this year as well. So I mentioned on here that if it works for other people, March 7th at 6 p.m., it's the Monday before our regular meeting. I mean, it doesn't have to be there. We can have a work session at whatever time. But if it works for people, we could do it then.
As long as it's not a consistent extra meetings every month.
No, yeah.
This is a special
Right.
reason, and I definitely.
At first, I've been having working sessions every month, which I think are very useful. The Planning Commission still does to a large extent. It's useful to talk things through, but I get burning everyone out. So yeah, this is just a one-off budget discussion, not a regular ongoing thing.
I agree.
March 7th works for people?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, and yeah, if you guys want more information specifically on anything or specific contact information on a specific project or something you want to see, let me know. Next thing on here, because we did the work session, Kelly has been looking at the parks and getting quotes drawn up and potential projects on that. And so she had a letter that she included here. Also, if she would like to speak up.
Yeah, I'd like to read the letter just in case some people haven't gotten to it. It just says February 2022. Residents of Dalton Township, I'd like to update you on a project that I've undertaken for 2 of our parks here in Dalton Township, Beagle Field and Catalpa, are in need of major updates. It is my goal to procure funds through the ARPA monies that we have received and possible grants that I have applied for through several foundations. Upon receiving plans and estimates, I will be obtaining board approval to move forward with the project. I welcome your suggestions and ideas at any time. I will update the citizens of our township as we gather information, quotes, and plans. And I have gotten some quotes, and it's just an approximate, but I would like to bring that up to the board before I say anything more on that.
Yeah, that'd be perfect at the working session. Yeah, that works. All right, perfect. Moving on to PFAS. So PFAS is this huge emergent problem of contamination, of pollution that wraps itself around DNA is what it seems to be. They're not sure exactly on the effects. Michigan started making it a thing in 2018, basically. They changed the parameters so now they detect for more chemicals and at a more sensitive level in 2020. So they keep detecting more sites. On average, over the last 4 years, they're discovering 1 new PFAS contamination site in the state about every week. And so there's a lot of them coming up. This one is specifically, because we have the 3 main pollution sites, all right, that I talked about before. We got the business park, all right, that we've talked about, Dual Gardner that we've talked about. And then this one is a little above M120 near Michelin, right on the north side of Bear Creek. And it was originally detected that there was PFAS at the child care facility there right on 120. So Eagle looked around to find where that potentially could be coming from, and they found Northside landfill that was shut down in the 70s. And they drilled some holes there, some testing wells and those types of things, and tested the creek now. And it was an ongoing thing, because they were like, we're going to test, we're going to test, we're going to test, and they did a decent amount of that. they found that that is leaking PFAS, the Northside landfill is, and it is leaking it into Bear Creek. But it seems to actually be two separate issues now, which they did not originally realize. And so PFAS was in all sorts of stuff. I've been to some PFAS seminars online, and they just show like a picture of a room for what PFAS is in. It can be in wrappers and clothing and furniture and all sorts of things. And I believe they're removing it out of what you can use it in manufacturing. And so the site on 120, when I was talking to the departments in Eagle, don't seem to talk to each other very well, maybe if at all. But I was talking to the guy that actually does the testing and monitoring in the field, and he said it's very hard to tell. If someone in the 1980s had dumped a couple of gallons of Scotchgard on that location, that could be it. If there was a car fire at one time in the foam that they used to use for firefighting for those types of things, it used to be in there. Could have been something like that. It could have been all sorts of stuff. So they said they just kind of kick it around the office, but you'll probably never really know why that spot has this. Now, part of this discussion is that Eagle wants a water main run up 120 to this location, but to no one else. And that's part of a grant that they're talking about covering. There's a few potential issues with that. One is I talked to one of the water plant engineers, and they said that it's no guarantee that all the PFAS will be out of municipal water. I talked to Eagle. Their plan is to try to put everyone in the state on municipal water, which is an interesting plan, especially if it doesn't fix the problem. There has been no discussion in Eagle, even though I brought it up, to actually remediate the landfill site to stop it from leaking into the creek. And I have updated the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership on all three locations, actually, but including this location. So they're obviously interested in remediation, but Eagle doesn't seem to be worried about it. On the water project, part of the reason the water is being run across the big channel up by Lake Michigan right now is because water has to be looped in a certain way, and I'm not a water engineer, obviously. But you can't just end it in certain spots. And so if you run a line directly to someone, most likely Eagle is going to force you to loop it around also. In that part, they are not proposing to cover. They are also not proposing to force that to be done at this time, but most likely in the near future they would also force that part to be done. They can also force this to be done. They have an immense amount of power. Not sure exactly where it is, and even though I'm on the Water Policy Board, we've been getting updated. A plan is being drawn up on an accurate estimate on how much the project would be, including the looping aspect of it. The remediation talks don't seem to be occurring inside of Eagle yet at this time, but I have brought them up, so hopefully maybe they are a little bit. And that is basically, and if it's found that there's a residence or a commercial site like this where PFAS is detected, you can get a water filter through the county health department. Now, because Eagle seemed to have pushed the child care facility that they wanted them to drill a different well, which I don't understand how that would fix it. But they weren't going to do that because of the cost. And then with them pushing the water main, they had advised them to just hold off on the filter, which is very odd because the stuff can take a while. And so I talked with the child care facility and I talked with the Muskegon Health Department and said, you two need to talk about getting a filter that the county will provide and install at the location. They've been using bottled water that they bring from off-site up until now. So that is, I don't know how long this thing is going to take, and it seemed to me like there's a little bit of a tendency, like people want to keep it a little quiet, which obviously throws up a red flag for me, and then I have a tendency to make things public. So I just wanted to kind of bring this update, and that is basically all I know. All right, we have 2023. I know it's still early in 2022 at this point, but there's obviously a couple of things that are going to be big for next year, so I just want them to be in people's minds. The one is the fire department operating millage, and because that expires in 2024, and we're breaking record numbers of calls, it would, I think it would make a lot of sense to add more full-time firefighters, but that's a pay gap, that's a budget gap. And so if we ask for an increase, and it's a vote by the general public, right, which I think is proper because they're voting on their own taxes, but if I wait until 2024 and then ask for the increase, and people are like, no, it's too much, we shouldn't have an increase, and they vote it down, Well, you just voted your fire department away, right, out of operating. And so if we ask for the increase in 2023, it's a year early, but if people are like, no, the increase is not desired, if they vote it down, we can still just go for the renewal at the same millage in 2024. It gives us a little bit of a safety feature, you know, and I think that's a reasonable way to go about it. You could go about it the opposite way. You could go for the renewal in 2024 and after that ask for an increase. But the way the fire department is currently operating, I think it would make sense to move it closer. At this point, I think maybe I should have even been a little more aggressive and asked for it in 2022. 2022 at this point is just around the corner. We'd have to be getting it in for a vote now. So it'd be tight on that one. I think the 2023 plan is a reasonable idea.
Can we shoot for 2022, and then if that doesn't happen in time, then do the 2023?
I could look at what the actual cutoff date is and if we can get it in. I think
you want to balance.
I think it's probably different. Do you know, Kim?
You passed the May deadline, so you go into the August, and I am going to say I would not recommend it at this time, because you need to get all your financial facts to go to the people to even think that first.
Right.
So to try to get into 2022, the idea of going a year in advance is a good idea. You have to look at how close to the expiration can you do your renewal. We need to find out what the law is on that. And if you go too soon and you're not prepared, you're not gonna give the second chance at it.
Right.
It's gonna fail.
Right.
Go in there prepared. You don't want
That's a good idea.
to educate the people.
Yeah, we all
Exactly.
know what's going on.
Exactly. I would not rush it for 2022 because you're already in this May, so there's no way you can do May. August, it's not gonna, August, I don't think it would be ready for August. Just my opinion.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, August is right around the corner
It was a struggle the last,
for the equipment millage.
yeah, for a simple equipment millage, $37 a year, it passed by 40 votes.
Right.
You want to talk about watching a guy have a condition? We were losing, seriously, and yet every person I talked to said, yeah, I voted yes.
But there is a law for how far,
Between our renewal,
when the renewal is actually to do it as a renewal.
Right, and I talked to the lawyer, but it was a while ago now, about this, and the 2023 plan works, but I didn't ask about 2022 at the time.
Okay.
Well, I guess we
I
have to-
honestly think it's, you can't, I don't think you can, but
You don't have to.
I didn't check and refresh on that. So.
Okay.
Right.
2023 it is, but you can still, I'm assuming you're still plowing you're starting now, not waiting until.
Yeah, we'll start making sure we have ducks in a row for the 2023.
Then the 2023 would just be for the,
that would be,
the increase.
it would be increasing the current millage. And then, or early in the renewal, early in the renewal,
Right, you'd be a year early on the renewal plus the increase.
plus the increase. If it fails,
Then you can do just the renewal in 2024.
2024. My only fear with that is if they shoot it down in 2023, they could shoot it down again in 2024 because in their heads they're still asking for money.
But you're asking
Either way,
less.
I'll have a stroke before that. So.
Don't do that.
No,
Permission to have a stroke denied.
Yeah.
Tell everyone in the room if you want to.
I struggle hard with this. I truly do it. I hate asking for $37 a year. I hate to ask for that. Hate it.
How many calls you going on?
We're
Let's reason this out.
115 for the year, right? I mean, but it is what it is. Everybody's busy. Everybody is busy. It's just the way it is. Anybody's going to the ER, you're waiting 4 hours. I mean, it's the way our society is.
Yeah, yeah.
But if the citizens feel they're fine with what they have, and typically I hear, I never needed to use it. You never use your car insurance either, but again, I'm not gonna be a devil's advocate. I'm going to do what I believe is best for this community. If the constituents don't believe it's the right move, then I'll respect their wishes and I'll try to do the best I can. But unfortunately, when we or 2 or 3 minutes slower because we can't get out the door with enough people. I'm sorry, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
Again, this is not personal, it's, if you want to see what dissipates people, it's this. Again, I hate, ask Kim, she sees me almost every day with bills, and I stroke bringing those over, because I don't like doing it.
Yeah,
Because
well, I mean,
again,
it's a thing that has to be done.
I just
So-
don't, I don't know what the right way is, I really,
I mean, it's not
We need to
not
sit
really
down.
something we can put off.
no,
Because, I mean, the deadline comes due in 2024, no matter what we do. So,
I need to speak with the clerk, and deputy clerk, and the treasurer, and deputy treasurer, because we need to make sure we have all the numbers. I don't want to have anything, and I think they're the same way, I don't want to have anything misunderstood. With the never written language, it's a pain to write the language, and I want to make sure it's perfect. There's no, I don't want anybody to stand there for a second and question, does this mean yes or does this mean no?
correct.
And that's what I think happens, is the way they're written sometimes. And it's no fault of anybody, it's just the way the law says it is. I don't know.
All right, well, I'll move forward with the plan for 2023 then. Next, we have the master plan coming up, and also in 2023. That's the 5-year renewal. So this was done in a large way in 2018, where they sent out a ton of information, brought in a consulting company, it cost 30 to 40 grand. On a large scale like that, you can do everything from something big like that, all the way to the planning commission just looking at it and saying it looks good, and it going through. So there's everything in between there is technically possible. All right, now, because it was just done 5 years ago, and it's not 10, 15 years old, something like that, I don't think that a huge, massive redo, restructuring will be necessary, and so the planning commission can make some adjustments when they're going through it, but probably won't necessarily need to make a ton, because the situation hasn't changed that massive amount in the land use in 5 years. So, and Steve is preparing a presentation to the planning commission to get them started on this process for the master plan. We also have sewer negotiations with Michigan Adventure, and so obviously we've been dealing with the sewer financial issues going up Whitehall Road, especially, although there are some on River as well. And there were those 2 big court cases after the project in 2016 that went to the Court of Appeals, and part of that was with Michigan Adventures, and so we'll have a negotiation with them that comes up in 2023. And so I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. I'm not sure how it will go. Last time I talked to Michigan Adventures was when they were still restricted on what they could do, so they weren't doing great business. The company that owns them didn't sound like they were particularly happy with them. They're a huge user of the sewer system, of course. So
Didn't I just see that, wasn't it SeaWorld was purchasing Michigan Adventure?
I don't know. I've heard that, but just through the grapevine and through the news as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's actually happening behind the scenes on something like that, and I don't know what that will change. So, because if someone comes in and they want to do a massive amount of investment, something like that, that could work out very good for getting more use in the sewer and that type of thing. If someone wants to buy it and cut the water parts out, then that would work out horrible. So it just depends on what they're looking at and what they're doing, which is obviously, I think, up in the air probably at this point. I'm not sure if they've actually cut a deal with anyone. All right, next we have the administrative assistant change, which we've already spoken about a little bit here, and Kim just wanted everyone to know what the situation was and dispel any rumors, and she wrote a little letter in here. I don't think I need to read it, but basically she found a better job closer to where she wants to live. And so
Oh, wait a minute, wait, better job?
she found a different job closer to where she wants to live.
Better
And
only
so
because it's closer.
it's better for her overall life situation, right, in that sense. And so she's going to that. And she's been working with us. Lexi was here, but she had left, and she's doing training. She parted one day last week, and she's doing a bunch of training this week together and learning a bunch of things. And so I appreciate Kim sticking around to get that overlap, so someone just doesn't come in cold.
Congratulations. Seriously.
Thank you.
It's always good to work close to home.
Yeah.
We will miss you.
Yeah, Robert.
Yeah.
Personally, for those that don't know, Kim and I work pretty close together. Hard shoes to fill. She really an eye on everything we're doing, he keeps an eye on making sure I'm doing things right. Yeah, we had a couple hiccups that we both missed, but we both took 50-50 blame on that one. Not we both did it, but we did. But you're gonna be sorely missed, at least by the guys at the firehouse that are looking to make sure that you've done well for them. You mean the world to them, so thank you.
I'd like to say on Andrea and I's behalf also, congratulations on your move, your new journey, and you taught us so much, gave us so much knowledge, and it's hard not to cry sometimes when I think about you leaving, but we appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And go figure, Lori would be sick the day the lilacs.
Take good notes, she can read it.
Oh, she's gonna love my notes.
We're on to our second public comment section. If anyone would like to come up to the lectern on anything at all, and if you want to follow up and stuff, Andrew, you're welcome to as well.
I'll let people go, see if there's too much time for that.
You were here before, wants to go up?
I just have a couple questions.
Yeah, come on up.
Oh, okay.
Mine's all good.
And if you could state your name and address.
Deborah Miller, 674. All right, we'll take that now.
So it is changed to 10 years?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Correct. Yep, it was changed to 10
Is
years.
there a place to find, did the totals change or not?
So the totals, I believe the totals changed. The totals changed, Kim?
I could find them, is there a place to find them online? 'Cause,
So I have this entire packet with entire resolutions publicly posted on the website. If you go daltontownship.org on the left-hand side, there's all the things you can click on. There's meeting agendas and packets.
I just looked again when I was sitting there, and I couldn't find what I was looking for.
I'll make you a copy.
You will make me? Okay. So that was my other question. And then, is there gonna be an opportunity to come in and pay that extra? So like if it's $600 a year, can we walk in and pay that $600 a year out of our pocket? I have escrow, and it's a nightmare to even think about what that's gonna do to my escrow.
Is that, not exactly how that works?
Or is
I
it
don't know
gonna-
how it changes in the escrow situation.
Is there gonna be a penalty if we wanna pay off the whole thing extra,
There's interest on that, but there should be no.
So we could just come in and pay it extra, like we done?
People
So
can
that's
pay
not-
them early, pay them
Yeah,
early,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Okay. And did you guys ever look for a grant? No? There wasn't anything?
I looked into the grants thing, so Fruitland Township isn't getting any grants, hasn't gotten grants for the road stuff. Don't know exactly where that came from. But I talked with Mark Sminkowski. He's trying to get some appropriations right now through the state for different projects. It's kind of always happening. But he wasn't aware of grants for something like this.
Okay, so,
Otherwise, they would have used it on their section.
I spent a few hours looking for road grants.
okay.
Throughout the state of Michigan.
The easiest way to go about the road grant thing, as far as I can tell, because it looks like we'll have some successfully this year, is through the road commission themselves. And so they apply for them, and obviously they know I'm interested in ask about these different projects, and part of the reason we're able to get the discount, or the major reason we're able to get the discount on the material that's out there right now, is because I've been updating them on we have this thing going forward. But especially on things like these, like local roads, there is much less interest from the higher levels of government. Now, if you get to main thoroughfares, if you get up to state roads and a little bit even county roads, but especially state roads, then usually money will come down from that higher level. Like if there's a major project on 120, something like that, the state can be heavily involved. But for local roads, even the road commission to a large extent, they're like, we'll put in our 25%.
Okay. So the next meeting next month is gonna be it, right?
Correct, so that
So
will be
that-
another hearing, and that's on the fourth resolution, and that's the last resolution of this resolution process.
So we could potentially be starting on the road in the spring after that?
It will be according to the road commission schedule.
Okay. But we probably would, if it's gonna go on the winter taxes, it wouldn't be until next year, anyway, right?
It's got
Correct.
to go in 2020.
Yep.
2023. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna elaborate on that. So fruit board,
I get that right this time?
Well, Fruitland's next to us.
Fruitland Township. They were working with the road commission on their side roads and things like that, so, I don't have a lot of information on that, but they were working with them to get those roads done through different monies that, I mean, I don't really know a lot about that, but I did talk to them about how they were doing those roads, so something to look into.
The road commission has a ridiculous amount of discretion. If they tell us to go kick sand, then that's what we do. Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. Is this Representative Bumstead's office? or-
Well, yes, it is.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Eckroff, and I'm here on behalf of Senator John Bumstead. I'm his district rep for his district in West Michigan. And so Jeff knows we've met at several different meetings around the county. And so I'm just here to introduce myself and to let you know that if you have any concerns, even with the grants, even with roads, even with things coming up in your community, or you have issues, we have wonderful staff in Nancy that is there to really assist you in really a numerous amount of projects, whether it concerns how to help with your ARPA funds, or if it has unemployment with local issues where people have problems, education, there's grants. I mean, we have a phenomenal staff, and I'd like people to be aware of that. And I have my card and also the Citizen's Guide to State Government, how we can be helpful, because you should take advantage of. Yeah, and that, I brought them out here, that's right, and I do have more. And I did also, some cards, there's several bills that the senator has introduced that I think will be, hopefully they will go through. The one that, a special interest, I don't know how it is in your area with the veterans and their taxes, the veterans that are tax exempt, and how it's affecting your revenue or lack of, And so it is a good program. However, it has put a big burden on the local municipalities covering that cost. When veterans, I'm not sure if you're aware, people have served in the military and if they've been hurt in any way, they can file, and then you can get exempt from their property taxes like for life.
They have to be 100% disabled though, correct?
Well, no, not,
Really?
well, because I know we have residents, you're not supposed to, you're just thinking of somebody maybe they can't walk. There's a lot of other things too. Because we have a lot of them, as you know, I'm in Dalton Township, so we have that problem. And what happens is the communities have taken a big burden on their taxes. So what Senator Bumstead has proposed, and we're hoping it'll go through, is to still stay the same. Veterans can still claim and file tax exempt on property taxes. However, the burden will be on the state to cover that cost with Treasury. And so they've had full support in the Senate with this, and so, but it's got to go through the House, and then the governors that you would approve it if it goes through. So that would be a good relief for the local communities to remove that tax burden. So that way the state will have to come up with the money. And talking about money on that note, I know all the local communities have received money because of the COVID funds that have come through, and the state has at this time an unbelievable amount of money floating around, which is good. And I know Senator Bumstead and some of his colleagues are working to use those funds at this one time, because it's not something that will come again. So the water bills that Senator Bumstead has proposed, and part of it does have the PFAS to help with all that cleaning. So there's money in there. There's money in there to clean a lot of that stuff for the state, and it isn't money that's going to go to the communities like Detroit or Flint or Benton Harbor, where they had all the water issues. That money, those billions of dollars, will be distributed throughout the rest of the state. So the money is there to help a lot with that cleanup. And also, besides that cleanup, and I'm not really sure if I remember where all the money's being line itemed to be allocated, but they do, she's getting all at me, but they do have it, like, say for all the schools, so the kids have clean drinking water, to have drinking, not the fountains, but the bottled water for all the kids at all the schools, so that way they can eliminate the contamination that they're concerned with contamination with that. Besides cleaning our lakes and our rivers, been working on the bridges and the dams, because you don't want to have another problem like, remember, with Midland, that whole crisis that happened back in the middle of the nightmare pandemic. So the water bill has got, the water bills, I should say, have a lot that's in there, that's billions, that really would be a wonderful thing to go into helping our infrastructure in our state. And another one that's really good is our state parks. there's a foundation in the state, I think it was created back in the 70s, about a revolving account of money for the state parks. Well, now there's money because of all the COVID funds that is geared to go right towards this fund, which means there'll be an unlimited amount of money that will be revolving. So all our state parks and our county parks in the whole state can be updated. We can have new bathrooms, new shop, all the stuff so they're up to code, because a lot of them are not, and they haven't been touched.
I kind of got a question, like I pay 10, 12 bucks out now, I think, to have that state park pass.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's all that money going to? Like, I mean, almost every person buys that, and
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
And I don't know if you realize, did you know that 500,000 campers go to Hoffmaster and Muskegon State Park every year? 500,000, that's over a million campers come to West Michigan every year.
To maintenance staff.
Just to realize, I just give that a little history lesson, just because when I first heard that, it's like, I had no idea that campers. But anyways, that would be a nice thing, so then we can elevate our campground, because that's a real huge tourist attraction for Michigan, and for our state, and I don't know where all that money goes.
Well,
I really don't,
from what I
honestly.
understand, the program that you're talking about is they were trying to hit a certain number in the bank account so that the interest that was earned is why it would be perpetual. The interest that was earned could be used for the
And you're
maintenance.
probably right, and I'm not sure what, yeah.
I thought
I
that's the
left,
way
I know, I
John
forgot my
described
little
it
notes
before,
with my notes on that, but I do know that the money will be put into that, so that way that can happen.
Right.
And then I wanted to add something else. I can't remember. Oh, I know, on another side note, about your millage renewal, just because in Lakes and Township, we have renewed our 911 for our police, and we did do the increase. And so really the language, whatever was on the ballot the last time that people voted, because we had our attorney, it really doesn't change. You don't have to go back and recreate the wheel. You get that original language, and what you do is, the assessor and the attorney look at it, and they change the percentage of what you want to increase it to. So if it was 0.00, whatever, they can say an increase up to that amount. So then all the language stays the same. So you don't have to worry about spending all that money and redoing that. And on another note, it'd be nice to tie it in with another election, like a November election. We're doing our renewal for the police this November, though ours expires in 2024 for the same reasons. I'm also the township clerk at Layton Township, so if someone's wondering why I'm talking about Layton. But we're doing it in November because that way you won't have to pay for it. Because if you opt out and decide to do it in an off year, you're paying for everything, for the programming, for the ballots, for the election itself. That'll be another additional cost to you. But if you piggyback with the county and the state, then it's, you don't pay anything. So just something to keep in mind when you're making your decision.
thank you.
Because I learned that too, because I'm thinking, why do we want to have it in November when we can, do you want to pay for it on your own in May? It's like,
Right.
no, that, I didn't think of that, so. At any rate, so any of you, if you have any questions, I've left my business cards up here. By all means, if you have state questions and things that I did not answer, you want to, feel free to call or email me. And the senator will be more than happy to help, because we really are trying to move things forward and excited to get things done, and so that's all I have to say. And then the Muskegon County Road Commission meets every month on a Wednesday, the third Wednesday of the month at 10 o'clock, because I'm going this Wednesday regarding road stuff, so just so you know, you can always go and ask them in person.
Yeah, often there,
You'll be there too?
usually.
Usually, yeah, I'll be going this Wednesday. So anyways, thank you very much, everyone, and good meeting and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. How's it going, Rachel?
A lot going on in my head.
I have no citizens guides, by the way, the library. Rachel Church, Dalton Branch Library, Muskegon Area District Library, 3175 Fifth Street. We just let remind you that we've been having the senior navigation services coming out every second and fourth Wednesday at the library. So anybody you know who's 60 and older, we've all voted for that senior millage. And it's lovely to see it work, and they just gave me some new flyers. They will help seniors with their taxes, with their medication needs, utility bills, home repairs, Medicaid, Medicare, applying for any benefits. So if you have a senior citizen that you know, myself included, that is in there. It's also in our newsletter, and they put a few more of those out there in the lobby, so we have plenty of
You
those,
already
page
did that?
16, you can have that. And, yeah, page 16, our senior navigation, where they, if you miss it at the Dalton branch, although I'd love to have anybody come and say hi. You can always go to one of our other branches, and they are just there waiting for you to come. And we've had a few people come in, and like during these COVID times, they needed a doctor because their doctor left or retired or whatever. And they came in and asked for those types of services. Anything someone over 60 or over needs, please come in and use that.
That sounds bullish. Where is the library located at in Dalton Township?
Do you know where the town, the Twin Lake
Elementary.
Twin Lake Elementary School is? We're in the same building.
Perfect. There
Yeah,
you go.
it makes it easy to find, nice big parking lot,
Yep.
within Fifth Street.
It's the part of the building closest to the
Yep.
parking lot.
Yep, closest to the parking lot. Jeff Nosey has been in there and used it a lot. And we had my coworker come in who does free computer classes, but nobody came in because of
No.
that it's Valentine's Day and all that stuff. But, yeah, look through our newsletter or our website with our calendar, lots of cool things happening every day there. So, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
It's a very nice library.
Any other public
Yeah,
comments?
that's why I said, you came and you
Yes, I
brought your
came in,
newsletter.
that's right. yeah.
Other public comments? Yeah.
I promise it will only take this.
Yeah.
We all help each other.
Being at the front desk and kind of heading off a lot of the people coming in firsthand, recently someone asked me if there's been any update on getting the railroad tracks fixed.
We just.
I know, it's inevitable, like, I know.
Question for every Monday.
I know.
And so there hasn't been an update on it. Now, recently, we had an inquiry into this comes back to our relationship with the Road Commission, which I have been attempting and pushing for us to have a good relationship with the Road Commission because that's the only way for that to work. There's still little power over them that the county commissioners actually had a legal opinion drawn up by the lawyer this year to see what kind of power they had. And they appoint, even though they're on 2-year terms, they appoint the road commissioners, which have 7-year terms. And then that board chooses the rest, makes all the decisions in the road commission. And so I think there's some belief in the township that I can leverage their arm somehow or something like that, which is so ridiculous it's hard to express. And so there has to be a good relationship there. And we were lucky enough that everything that I've done with them has gone well so far. I have asked them to do some things that they said no to, so hopefully I haven't pushed those too far. But the railroad tracks they had applied to do, because I had inquired when I first got in, with the railroad companies themselves. And the railroad companies can file such paperwork. The road commission later informed me that it would stop the road commission from doing anything on the parts of the roads where the railroad crosses. And so that word had gotten out there that I was inquiring into this and trying to make this happen. The road commission said, let us file some paperwork, apparently it's different, and we can get through that. So I believe they got approved to do 2 of the crossings, but not 3. So the one on Riley Thompson, I believe the one on Katy, but not the one down by Blue Lake where it comes out to M120. So those 2 hopefully happen this summer. I was trying to not publicly state that because if it doesn't happen,
Right, then
it'll
you're
be struck
better
up.
to be like
But,
outside at the February
yes,
meeting.
but hopefully they happen this summer.
Like I said,
If it works, then that's great, and I do think we're getting close to miracle working at that point, all right? If it doesn't work, then we're just back to regular working, but, all right, any more public comments?
before we move
Any
to
board
the
comments?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have a comment.
Yeah.
I would like to see Kelly's name added to the roll call, because it's still Gerald.
So we were just looking at that, and so both myself and Lori drew up some of those requests for considerations. I do all the discussion briefs, and so I updated mine, and I think Lori updated hers too. But at one point, because in the same packet, she has ones that she made that includes Kelly,
A lot of mine say Gerald.
and she has ones that she included that say Gerald. And so I think she used both a new version and an old version in the same packet. So yeah, it's worthy of
I
note.
found all those in the back.
Just saying, she's on the board. Gerald's not. Just saying.
Yeah, so it has been updated, I think Lori was just copying something.
Note taken, it will be fixed.
Yeah.
It will not have to
An
be
old
done.
version. She used part of the time, so.
Okay.
Before we move to adjourn, I would like to, before anybody leaves, especially Steve, and if you don't mind staying, I would like to get a group photo with Kim, with all of us.
Aw,
That's all right?
thank you.
Before everybody runs out the door.
All right, any other board comment? Hearing none, motion to adjourn by somebody?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second? Support, we'll call it by Lee.
Unanimous.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now.
Aye.
Motion by Carrie, support by Lee.